सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय. By the divine grace of our divine couple Madhuri Sakhi Sameta Shri Premika Varda Thakur ji, and by the apara karuna of our Sadguru Maharaj Maharanyam Shri Shri Muralidhar Swami ji, we have been experiencing the katha of a great Mahatma called Jnanananda Swami. And it so happened, this was all spur of the moment. It's very fortunate that we sang this Guru Kirtan right before we enter today's katha, because we are going to see in Bhagavad Pada's Charitram, or we know Bhagavad Pada's disciples, right? And we know Totakacharya, and our Jnanananda Swami comes in that lineage, Totakacharya Swami's lineage. Totakacharya has a name called Giri. That is why in our Jnanananda Swami's tradition, Guru Parampara, his guru is Shivaratnagiri Swami, and he is Jnanananda Giri. That Giri comes from the Totakacharya, because they all come from the Totakacharya Parampara. And according to that Parampara, every Parampara has certain they follow certain traditions, and they more closely go with a certain set of rituals or certain granthas. If we take our Sureshwaracharya, who is one of Bhagavad Pada's disciples, Sureshwaracharya was he was a Medai, he was a very literate disciple, and he wrote many Vartikas. So all of the disciples in the lineage, all they wrote Bhashyam for the Vartika, and many other granthas like Advaita Siddhi, many complicated Advaita granthas were written in that lineage. But our Totakacharya lineage is very special, because in this lineage, more than learning about granthas, more than writing Bhashyam, the primary thing about this lineage is doing Guru Seva. And that is very evident even in our Jnanananda Swami's Charitram. And the whole lineage itself, we see that from the beginning till Jnanananda Swami, all of them have one thing in common, and it is their Guru Bhakti. And to a Guru Bhakta, if you ask them, there are several levels of so when we look at Bhakti, there is being an Aishwaryarthi, there is being a Kaivalyarthi, there is being a Bhagavan Labharthi. There are many stages, as Gita says. There are many levels of being a Bhakta. Aishwaryarthi is who wants material possessions, and that's why he wants Bhagavan. Jnanananda Swami beautifully puts this three. He says there are actually 5 types of Bhaktas. First type is they want Bhagavan, they want the material possessions, and they want Bhagavan, but they want the material possessions first. They want Bhagavan because Bhagavan will grant them the material possessions. So they want Bhagavan. If Bhagavan does not grant it, they don't want Bhagavan. Second scenario is they want material possessions, they don't want Bhagavan at all. That is one type of people. Third type is they want Bhagavan, they have the intention, they are not mumukshus, they have the intention that Bhagavan is supreme. They know that the purpose of our life is to attain Bhagavan, but they also love material possessions. So that is the third type. They want Bhagavan, but they also want to enjoy in this world. Fourth type is I don't want any material possessions, I only want Bhagavan. But the fifth type is interesting, because the 3 types we looked at in Gita, all of them still have Bhagavan in the equation. Fifth type does not have that. Fifth type is they have no requirements, they have no needs. Now it doesn't make sense, because Bhagavan is the ultimate. So as we see it, we use Bhagavan in our Sampradaya, the Bhagavata Sampradaya, we use Bhagavan as the means and Bhagavan as the end. So we do that in our Sampradaya. But what does it mean when we say they have no needs? That means in Advaita Siddhanta, when you have realized that you are everything, when you are the Brahma Tattva itself, there is no attaining a second thing. You already attained the Brahma Tattva, you are that Brahma Tattva. That is what the Aham Brahmasmi, that Vakyam, it means that you have internalized that the Supreme Soul and you are interconnected and are no different. So it all forms in this one. It all forms in this one big macrocosm. So this is what we see as the crux of Advaita Siddhanta, which is realizing that we are that Brahma Tattva itself. But what is special is even those Advaitis, even those Parama Advaitis like our Madhusudana Saraswati Swami or our Jnanananda Swami, for example, all of these are very keen on Advaita philosophy. Even them, even when they realize that Aham Brahmasmi, that Vakyam, there is no quote in an Advaita book where it says Guroham Kila. So I'm saying there is no mention in an Advaita book where it says you attained Brahma now, you attained the Brahma Tattva, now you don't need Guru. None of the books say that. All of them, they say you have to attain the Brahma Tattva, you are that Brahma Tattva. But after that, they add a clause. They say you attain the Brahma Tattva because of your Guru. And the highest level of bhakti is not attaining Bhagavan through Guru. It is seeing that Guru itself as Bhagavan and doing bhakti. And we are very fortunate because Bhagya Vasatal un Tiruvedi Adindhen means we are incredibly fortunate that we have a living Guru and we can actually see our Guru Maharaj. So if we visualize our Guru itself as that Brahma Tattva, like our Ekanatha Swami or our Jnanananda Swami, as we are going to see in the Charitra, there is no need for worshipping other Bhagavan because they are all united in this one form called Guru. The Guru encompasses all Bhagavans, all Ishta Devata, Kula Devata, everything is encompassed by this one entity called Guru. So that way, our Jnanananda Swami was a Bhakta of that cadre. So that is what we are going to see. And when we last left off, we saw that our Jnanananda Swami, as a 12-year-old boy, Subramanya, he was laying down on the mud banks of river Chandrabhaga. And Bhagavan himself comes in the form of an old man and tells him that with no context, hey child, the purpose of what you wanted to achieve in life, that purpose is on the other side of the bank, so you should probably go there fast. Because the child did not understand, in the sense that it is Swami's Leela, Jnanananda Swami's Leela. He is Sarvagyan, but Sarvagyan because, not only because he is a Mahatma, he was the Pidadipati of the Sarvagya Pidam or the Jyotir Madam, as we know. So in all senses he is Sarvagyan, but it is a Leela. It is a Leela to show that excitement. This whole katha is we can relate to it because it shows the excitement, even though he is a Sarvagyan, the excitement he has towards meeting his Guru, or the excitement he has towards doing Kainkariya for the Guru. Swami didn't have anything to learn, but he went there and served his Guru for 27 years, not to learn. He already knew everything. It is just to do Kainkariya of Guru. It is just to, as we will see, the only purpose of his 27 years of stay was to keep the Kamandalam of his Guru full and his Dandam sparkling clean. That was his only purpose in that 27 years. It was not to learn Brahma Vidya, because he saw that Brahman was itself there. His Guru was the Brahman, so he did not need a secondary Brahman he did not need to attain a secondary Brahman. So Bhaktas ask like our Ramana Bhagavan, because it is very non-worldly, or it is a very very different type of notion that he left his house at 12 years old. So Bhaktas asked Ramana Bhagavan, who also left at a very young age. He left his house at a very young age and went to Tiruvannamalai to attain Lord Arunachala. And they asked Bhagavane, so they are addressing Ramana Bhagavan here. They asked him, you came only in a loincloth, Komanam as we know in Tamil, you only came in a loincloth, you didn't have any possessions. So Tiruvannamalai is as we know, it is a malai, it is a mountain, right? It is sort of a hill, a mountain. So we know that top of mountains the temperature can get cooler at night. So they asked Bhagavane, if the temperature gets cooler at night, what will you do? You only brought a loincloth. And he said, oh, don't worry, I have a blanket. I use one hand as the blanket for the other hand and one leg as the blanket for the other leg. That's all they want. Because when they attained, when our Ramana Bhagavan went and attained Lord Arunachala, the first time he gets a darshan of Lord Arunachala, the anandam they are experiencing, the first time they attain their guru, or the first time they are attaining Bhagavan, the purpose of what they left for, when they attain it, they have this great anandam. So none of the actual physical characteristics of the location or anything, it doesn't matter, because cold, like for example, like Ramana Bhagavan said, the cold, the heat, it's like Sitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu, like we say in Gita. You have to Arjuna, you have to treat you don't say it's extremely hot, extremely cold. Don't care about the extremes. No matter what comes, you take it as it is. And that is actually being shown here by the Mahatmas, because they actually do not care about the extremes. And so, like that, our 12-year-old boy, Jnanananda Swami as Subramanya, walks from Mangalapuri and is now in Pandaripuram. And I left off last time not talking about the significance of Pandaripuram as a Peetam. We know Pandaripuram in many other aspects. We know Pandaripuram is Bhuvaikuntham, as many of the Maharashtra saints have sung. But Pandaripuram is actually called the Maha Yoga Peetam. And this is said by none other than our Adi Shankara Bhagavad himself. If you look at Adi Shankara Bhagavada's Panduranga Ashtakam, he says, Mahayoga Pite Tate Bhimaratya Varam Pundalikaya Datum Munim Draisamadanta Tishtam Parabrahmalingam Bhaje Pandurangam. So, we know that our Bhagavad Pada established 4 mathas across India, north, south, east, west. One in Shringeri, one in Puri in the east, then in Dwaraka in the west, and then this Jyotirmat right at the top. So these are the 4 mathas. But now we are seeing another Pita being mentioned here. This Pita is called Maha Yoga Pita. What is the significance of this Maha Yoga Pita? Why is Pandaripuram called that? Because the word yoga, it is derived from the word yuga. We know the yuga, right? And the yuga means sort of like union, adjoinment. That's what that shabda means. And it is called Mahayoga Pita because it is, when we enter this place, it actually joins the jiva to that Brahmadatta itself. And it does it so incredibly quickly, because the Nama Sankirtana Marga does not say you do this for 10 years, you do this for 20 years. Instantaneously, as you chant, you get it. And Bhagavad Dharmam even goes a step extreme. You already got the pala, now sit and enjoy. So it goes to that extreme. That is why our Pandaripuram is called the Mahayoga Pita. And it is very apt that our Swami, who is Jyoti himself, came to Pandaripura to see his guru, who is the Shivaratna Jyoti, in this Jyoti Kshetram of Pandaripuram. So it was a culmination of all Jyotis. So he goes to see his Guru Maharaj, and there is an anecdote with this. So when he first goes and sees his Guru Maharaj, the Shishyas ask, as I said in the first day, Jnanananda Swami's Charitra is not very well known, because Jnanananda Swami did not want to reveal it himself. Only in very, very specific instances he gave tidbits. So one Bhakta asked, Swami, when you first met your Guru, your Matrubhasha is Kannada. The Guru came from Kashmir, as we will see. The Guru came from Kashmir, because this Jyotirmat is it's near Kashmir, it's in Srinagar. So he came from Kashmir. Your Matrubhasha is Kannada. So how did you communicate with the Guru? And Swami just said, just like the Maunam itself was enough. The Maunam itself was enough to understand what my Guru is saying. And that's what Swami said. The normal answer would be, the language of instruction at that time was Sanskrit throughout India. So if you knew Sanskrit, you could survive anywhere. Like today's English, you could survive anywhere. It was the lingua franca of the past time. But here, the thing to note is Swami, like our Sanakadis, in our Sanakadis were with Bhagavan when they got their when they got their Upadesha from Bhagavan, Bhagavan did not say anything. They were just quiet. That Maunam itself was an Upadesha. Like that, here, as many of us have experienced, when we go, we want to talk, but we cannot talk, right? So we are forced into a Mauna, but here he is actually in a Mauna, and the communication happens so beautifully. And our Jnanananda Swami Subramanya first meets his Guru. And Swami's Charitram is special, like our Ekanatha Swami, because all of the important events which happened in his life all happened on one day, which is the Chitra Paurnami day, Chaitra Masam, the Paurnami, whenever that happens, that is when all of the life events happen. And in Ekanatha Swami's Charitram, we see that he was born, he met his Guru, then his when he attained Siddhi, all of that is the same day. So Ekanatha Swami's Aradhana day and his Guru's Aradhana day are the same, and we see this pattern among great Guru Bhaktas. Great Guru Bhaktas often have the same dates as their Guru Maharaj. And interesting thing is the Mahatmas, when they see their Guru, until they see their Guru, they don't accept that life has started. And a great example is our Yogiram Suratkumar Maharaj's Guru, who was Papa Ramdas Swami. Papa Ramdas Swami had another disciple called Sachidananda. I'm pretty sure all of you know him. So Sachidananda Swami, he was turning 80. They wanted to release a journal with all of his Charitram and how he came to Swami and how he is now, etc. They wanted to release a journal. So they went and asked Swami, and Swami said, everything is good, but I've proofread it. Why is my age 80? And he said, Swami, we calculated it. You were born at this time, and right now, when we subtract the years, you get 80. He says, no. I'm only 50 years old. No, they did not understand, because they calculated again and again, and they got 80 as the value. So they asked Swami, no, we did it. You are 80 years old. And he says, no, for first 30 years I didn't meet my Guru. So that 30 years doesn't count. So only after I met my Guru, I have been born, and it's been 50 years since that happened. So I'm only 50 years old. Just kilek kade, you know. That's how Guru Bhaktas are. And when Swami meets his Guru, Swami is a Mahatma and his Guru is a Mahatma. And this young boy Subramanya falls at the feet, and the first thing he asks is, Swami, he does complete Sharanagati. The first time he sees his Guru, he has not seen him before. This is the first time he is ever seeing his face. But that eternal peace he gets from seeing his Guru, just being in the vicinity of the Guru, he goes into our Shivaratnagiri Swami's whatever room he was in, and he does namaskara, and immediately the first thing he asks is, Swami, give me Swarupa Jnanam. That is the first thing. He does not tell his name, does not tell where he's from. First thing he tells is, Swami, please give me Swarupa Jnanam. I have attained my purpose of life. And Swami himself mentions this later in his life, and he says that I'm so fortunate because that purpose of life, that Piravi Payan, which I am supposed to attain, which everyone attains close to their end of their life, or may not even end up attaining it, I attained it at age 12 because I got darshana of my Guru at age 12 itself. And our Haridas Giri Swami describes the Shivaratnagiri Swami, because we know very little about Jnanananda Swami, we know even lesser about Shivaratnagiri Swami. So our Haridas Giri Maharaj actually wrote a Kirtan on Shivaratnagiri Maharaj based on his Anubhava. Nobody knew about how he was, because he was in Jyotirmatam and he was a Pidadipati of the Jyotirmatam. Nobody knew about Shivaratnagiri Swami. So Haridas Giri Swami, out of his Anubhava, he writes a song. Says, Shri Shivaratnagiri Swami Namostute. That is it is a praise in the name of Shivaratnagiri Swami. Shri Shivaratnagiri Swami Namostute Shrita Janarakshaka Kalpataroni. So this is that Kalpataroni is he is trying to describe the first time our Jnanananda Swami meets his Guru. And the description he gives for the Guru is, Guru was sitting like a Kalpataru, waiting to shower his grace. And our Totakacharya has written a beautiful work. We know the Totakacharya's work. And in that, there is a line where he says, Guru, your grace is so great. How does he shower his grace? He says, like Varuna, you shower your grace. You know, right? Like Varuna, you're showering your grace. And this Kalpataru is different, as we know, because it doesn't grant what we ask for. It grants only what is good for us. It grants only what will progress us in the spiritual path. So he's saying, Shrita Jana Rakshaka Kalpataro Nide Ashrita Giri Parampara Parapara Guru Advaita Shastra Ratnakara Gire. So Guru was no ordinary person. Ashrita Giri Parampara Parapara Guru. He was no normal person. He was a great proponent of the Advaita Shastra. And it is needless to ask how great he was, because he was the Pidadipati of our Bhagavad Pada's established Pidam. So we already know how great he is with Advaita Siddhanta. And it says Advaita Shastra Ratnakara Gire. So his name was Shivaratnagiri, but he was a Ratna in all aspects. He was a Ratna in terms of how advanced he was in Vedas and in scriptures and in the Advaita Shastra. He was a Ratna in the Advaita Shastra. And there is also another Kirtan they sing in Swami Sampradaya. It is Ratna Guru, Guru Ratna. The Kirtan is very, very special because it changes the phrase. So your first line is Guru Ratna, second line is Ratna Guru. So that is a Kirtan which Jnanananda Swami sings for his Guru Maharaj, and it is supposed to mean, Guru, you are the Ratna among all Gurus, and who is that? That is you, Ratna Guru. That is that Kirtan. And then how does the Guru look? Because when we do our Dhyanam of our Guru, or when we think about our Guru and when we do Dhyanam, the first thing we need is his Rupam, right? The only reason Guru has taken a form and come to this world is first of all to help us cross this Bhavasagara. That is the main purpose. But when the Guru has a form, that Saguna Bhakti, it gives us an opportunity to actually visualize and enjoy the form of the Guru. So here he says, Kashaya Vastradhara Kashmira Desha Chara. This line is very special. So Kashaya Vastradhara Kashmira Desha Chara. So we see the Dara and Chara, it is rhyming. But when Haridas, I said, right, Haridas Giri Swami was the one who composed this based on his Anubhava. He's singing this in front of Jnanananda Swami. Jnanananda Swami stops him when he sings this line. He says, not Kashmira Desha Chara, Kashmira Desha Stita. Chara means he was Nadamadin Rindar, like it's a past tense that he used to live. No, that is wrong. He still lives. He still lives in Jyotirmadam. He still lives there. He still lives everywhere. So he asks him to change it, Kashmira Desha Chara to Kashmira Desha Stita. So Swami Haridas Giri Swami changes the first word as well, makes it Kashaya Vastrankita Kashmira Desha Stita. He changes that line, and then Karadrita Jnana Danda Kali Kalmasha Hara. This is also an important line because there is a story of a Bhakta, of Swami's Bhakta called Venkata Subbayar. So this line is special because Jnana Danda. So Bhagavad Pada himself has said, sannyasa lakshana, there are some lakshanas, there are some characteristics of sannyasis. We see them, they hold kamandala, they have this danda, and some of the sannyasis are bald, they have shaved heads, some of them have a little hair in the back, shikai. So there are some common characteristics to identify sannyasis. But he says, danda and kamandala are the most important characteristics of a sannyasi. And the rule is, this for doing namaskaram, according to Shastras, if you see someone who is, even let's say there is a fancy dress competition and a child is wearing a sannyasa costume with a kamandala and danda, you are supposed to do namaskaram. Otherwise, it's a sin. That attire itself has so much value. But some sannyasis we see, they don't always carry their danda. Why? Because we just saw that it is a sannyasa lakshana to have a danda with you. That stick, the danda they have, it is a sannyasa lakshana, you are supposed to have it. But if they don't have a danda, so how do you go about that? So that Bhagavad Pada himself clarifies that. He says that they don't carry normal stick as their danda. Their actual danda is jnana itself. Jnana itself is a danda for them. And in this story, there is this bhakta called Venkata Subbayya, and he was an expert in Vedas, Shastra, Mimamsa. He used to do pravachanam of Ramayanam, Bhagavatam and the Shastras. And one time during this Chitra Paurnami, as I said, it was his Guru's Aradhana. So Swami wanted to hold a katha at that time. So Swami asked if Venkata Subbayar could come and do a pravachanam for the Aradhana of his Guru. And he immediately agreed. He didn't know much about Swami, but he knew that he was a great soul. He came. But the thing is, as I said, if you see a sannyasi, you are supposed to do namaskara. The only way you don't do some namaskara is if they don't have their kamandalam and dandam, or you don't know their background in the sense that if they are not carrying anything and you know that this Mahabhari was standing, you still do namaskara. It doesn't matter. But if you don't know about their history and they don't have these lakshanas, you can or cannot do namaskara. It's not a sin if you don't do namaskara. So Swami was standing with no danda, no kamandala, and Venkata Subbayar comes in and he does not do namaskara to Swami. That is the skatha. He does not do namaskara to Swami. He is still very respectful. He asks Swami, Swami, I don't know much about you. What sampradaya are you? Generally, we don't ask a guru these kind of questions, but he asks, what sampradaya are you? And he says, Bhagavad Pada sampradaya, Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavad Pada's sampradaya. And he says, okay, then where is your danda and kamandala? On top of asking him what is his lineage, he goes one step further and asks, okay, if you are a sannyasi, where is your danda and kamandala? And normally you would expect someone to get angry, right? Because he is a sannyasi, so he is asking a question which is not supposed to. It is not appropriate. And Swami does not react like that. Swami, so in Sudur, they were building an adhishtanam. For that adhishtanam, they required a sale deed for that property. They required a sale deed. So for that sale deed, it had to be on the name of Jnanananda Swami. The sale deed had to be in his name. But they knew nothing about his background. Jnanananda Swami didn't tell the bhaktas anything about his background, so they didn't know what to put in the sale deed, except the fact that he's Jnanananda Swami who is going to take this property. So Jnanananda Swami, in that sale deed, it is mentioned that he is comes in the lineage of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. He was the Pidadipati of the Kashmir, the Jyotir Matam, which I talked about. And he is the disciple of Shivaratnagiri, and it says at the end, he is the disciple of Shivaratnagiri, Jnanananda. And Jnanananda, even if we talk to some of the bhaktas, if Swami signed someone's book or something, he'll put an initial called S. Jnanananda. So one thing to note is he is a sannyasi. He doesn't have any worldly relations. So how come he has a parental last name, or how come we are seeing this initial? And that S in the Yajnananda stands for Shivaratnagiri, because his Guru Mata, Guru Pita, it is actually seen there. So he brings his sale deed. He could have just not answered, but he brings the sale deed and shows it to him. See, as I told you, I am from the Bhagavad Sampradaya, and I am a disciple of Shivaratnagiri Swami, and I am a sannyasi. And now he became, now this Bhakta didn't know what to say, but he still had this doubt. And Mahatmas, they don't need you to explicitly say something or ask a question. Because one time, when Swami, there was a devotee who came in, and his thought was like some of the older Purva Mimamsa philosophers, they have this thought that what is the point of sannyasam? You are just trying to escape worldly duties. What are you doing as a sannyasi? You are just sitting quiet. You are giving some prasadam to whoever's coming. He had this thought. He didn't mention any of this. This devotee had this thought going to Swami. Swami was overlooking a construction site. In a construction site, they were mixing cement. They added some of the mortar. They were adding some of the soil and mixing it together. So Swami answers. He did not ask anything, but Swami answers. The purpose of sannyasis and people like us, you see, when they have the mortar, before they make it's just powder, and the water is separate, the powder is separate. But the mixed design, when you do it, the binding agent, right? There is a binding agent they add when they do these kind of construction projects. They add a binding agent. So that binding agent is what we are. We will join you. You are not alone. You are like one of these particles. We will join all of these particles together, be the binding agent, make you realize that you are everything. You are that Brahma Tattvam is you. And by this, after you realize this, you will be a self-realized soul. That is the purpose of us. And he immediately fell down at his feet. So like this, in this Venkata Subbaiah Charitram, he still had this question: why doesn't he have a danda or a kamandala? Swami answers. Bhagavad Pada himself has said one time that Jnanatmaika Dandabhyah Namaha. So in the Shankara Ashtotra, it says Jnanatmaika Dandabhyah Namaha. So it means whoever has Jnana as the danda, I salute to him. That's what Bhagavad Pada wrote. And they say that sannyasis have Jnana as their danda, so I didn't require danda. But he went to his room, took his danda, came back and showed it to this Bhakta. He said, "Here, see, here's my danda," like a kid. And Venkata Subbaiah immediately fell at his feet, and he said, "Swami, please forgive me. I did not mean to do any abachara. I was just curious." And Swami says, "Don't worry. It's just a leela." So Swami knew that, and after that, once he was caught by that magnet called Guru, he never left after that. After that, till the time he attained his Guru's feet, he was constantly in the service of our Swami. So, coming back, this Guru of Jnanananda Swami had danda and a kamandala, and Swami goes in detail to describe it, because the first Kainkarya, which the boy is there, our Subramanya is there meeting his Guru. The first Kainkarya the Guru gives him is, Subramanya, your job is to make sure that my kamandalam is always full with water, and that my danda is always clean, sparkling clean. That's what you give to a 12-year-old, right? You don't tell them much. You give them a task which they can accomplish, right? But Swami later, when revealing this to his disciples, he says, "Swami, how beautifully he taught me my first lesson. That danda he gave and made me keep clean. That was not just the danda. That is the manas. Manas, if you don't clean it all the time, it will get dirty. So Swami wanted me to understand that I have to always keep purifying my manas, and that samandala is the knowledge, and you keep it full. The meaning of keeping it full is when you do Guru Bhakti, you always do not consider yourself. That I goes away, that aham goes away, so the pot is empty. So you keep refilling it with this Guru Tattva. So the meaning of that Kamandala is, since I have fully done Sharanagati and since I am now empty, let that Guru who is everything come and sit inside me. So Swami says that these are, my Guru gave me such a simple Kainkarya, but he wanted me to realize such a great Tattva. That is the speciality of what we saw so far. And he did Kainkarya for 27 years. He did Kainkarya to his Guru for 27 years, and in this time he learnt the Prasthanatrayam and many other scriptures, purports, etc. of the Advaita Siddhanta, as well as Tarkam, Mimamsam, Nyayam, all of the Shastras. He learnt all of the Shastras, and he was constantly in service of his Guru. He used to do everything. He used to do cleaning the Guru's room, getting just like our Ekanatha Swami. When we see Mahatmas who are Guru Bhaktas, Mahatmas are different. Indeed, Mahatmas, you can never identify a Mahatma. Even you can identify a Mahatma with certain characteristics, but you can never pinpoint and say that a Mahatma will look like this. You can never say that about a Mahatma. But Guru Bhaktas all have this one thing in common. They do service for n number of years, even though they know everything. Even though they have the Jnana, they still do the service, which Jnananda Swami, being in Totakacharya's parampara, does it aptly, because our Totakacharya's Katha, as we know, so our Totakacharya Swami, for whoever don't know the history, his name was Giri, and he was a disciple of Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada, and there were many other disciples who were very, very competent. Like I said, our Sureshwara Acharya, Hasta Malakar, or Padma Padar, they are the four main disciples of Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada. And Totakacharya was considered by the other three as not that intelligent, not very well versed in the Shastras. So one time what was happening is Bhagavad-pada was conducting a Bhashyam class. Bhagavad-pada was doing a Gita Bhashyam and Brahmasutra Bhashyam, the Prasthanatrayam. They were discussing the Prasthanatrayam. So Bhagavad-pada, as usual, there was class. So Padma Padar and Sureshwara Acharya, they all came. And Totakacharya, who is our Giri, he was a Guru Bhakta. So he was always indulged in the Kainkarya. He did not attend many classes. He was always indulged in the Kainkarya of the Guru. But the Guru wanted him to attend the class. So he was waiting. Bhagavad-pada was waiting. So one of the disciples asked, Swami, why are you waiting? Everybody is here. He says, no, let Giri come. Let Giri come and then we will start. So all of these disciples are jnanis, but it is a leela. So Padma Padar says, what is the point? With Giri being or a wall being here, it is the same thing, because both are not going to understand what you are saying. And Swami Bhagavad-pada thinks about our Giri or the Totakacharya for millisecond. That is, the Guru, when Guru does Sakshatkara, or when Guru wants the Shishya to attain everything, it is instantaneous. And our Totakacharya Swami was always indulged in Guru Kainkarya, right? And he was always in the thought of his Guru. So 1 second his Guru thought of him, he attained all the knowledge in a flash. So Totakam. So Totakam actually means washing the clothes. That's what he was doing. He was doing that Kainkarya, and immediately Giri feels that his Guru is calling him. He did not call him. He felt from within that his Guru was thinking about him. And that's how an Uttama Guru Bhakta is. They do the tasks of the Guru. That's how Jnananda Swami describes. Who is a Guru Bhakta? Guru Bhakta does the Kainkarya for a guru without the guru asking. Before even the guru thinks about it, the Shishya already does it. That's how an Uttama Guru Bhakta is. And like that, the guru felt that, oh Giri, you should attain all knowledge. You should come here right now. And he felt that, and he immediately came. And as he was coming, he was chanting. He was chanting something. And as he got closer, they heard it. Vidita Kila Shastram. They heard it. And they were astonished because till this date, Giri did not know alphabet. Giri did not know how to read, write. He did not know a single shloka. He only knew his guru. So as he was coming with this, he was washing clothes, right? He came with clothes and he was chanting the shloka of highest order. The meter was perfect. The meter is Totaka. That is why it is called Totakashtakam, right? The Totaka is the meter. Because he was washing the clothes, he was rating in that meter. So they were astonished. Thought, you didn't even know about alphabets. Now you are composing in meters. How? And our Giri comes there and he says, Swami, it is all because of your grace. It is your grace only that I am saying all this. It is you, through me, you're saying this sloka, you're doing this salutation. It has nothing to do with me. I am just an instrument. You are the one who is doing all of it. And then they realize the greatness of Totaka Acharya. And coming back, Jnananda Swami, as we see, he comes in this Giri Parampara. So it is very apt that he also did service for 27 years under his guru, like our Totaka Acharya Swami. And at the end of this 27 years, he was waiting. And at this time, the guru gave him a name. He was called Prajnana Brahmachari. When Swami entered, called Subramanya, at age 12, the guru gave him a name because he didn't know the father or mother, because the child just came by itself. He gave him a name called Prajnana Brahmachari. And after he taught him everything, generally in Vedic education and Shastras, once you finish your education, they ask you to do a Tirtha Yatra. It's like an excursion. And the reason for that is so that you get some real world application of the knowledge. As you gain more experiences in the real world, when you do this Tirtha Yatra and you're going kshetra to kshetra walking, you will have many experiences, and with those anubhavas and your knowledge combined, then he thought that after that you will be apt for sannyasa. Because for sannyasa you need to have both. You need to have, our Shivaratnagiri Swami was actually thinking of promoting him to becoming the Peethadipati. Because he was getting closer and closer to what time he fixed for himself to leave the mortal coil. So he thought that our Subramanya would be a good successor. So we just have to wait. We have to train him so that he can manage everything in the Peetham. Because no easy job managing a Peetham. And he does this Tirtha Yatra. Swami does this Tirtha Yatra, comes back, and Guru tells him that I am going to. It is also on the Chitra Purnami day, as I said earlier, that I am going to leave my mortal coil. Swami was not shocked at all. Because this happened even in Ekanatha Swami's Charitram. When these Ekanatha Swami's disciples, they came and told him Janardana Swami has attained Siddhi or Samadhi, they expected him to roll on the floor and cry. But he said, oh, is that so? That was his reaction. That was Ekanatha Swami's reaction to his Guru leaving his mortal coil. Everybody was confused. You are the greatest Guru Bhakta we know, and you have no reaction of your Guru leaving. He said, who said my Guru left? My Guru is still here. You can't see him in the mortal coil, that's it. He just, like how a snake sheds its skin, we see this phenomena in nature, right? Snake sheds its skin, and it's so, it happens so seamlessly. The snake is not in any pain. It just sheds its old skin and just crawls away. Like that, Jnanis, when they have to shed this body, they don't feel any pain or they don't feel any attachment or anything. And our Ekanatha Swami or our Jnananda Swami here, they always had their Guru in mind. So they did not have to go somewhere outside and search for the Guru, or the physical presence is only needed for us to remember the form. but the form was always in their mind, so they did not really need it. So our Swami was stern, and then Shivaratnagiri Swami, he tells Subramanya, okay, I sent you on this Kshetradanam, you're back. Now I want to anoint you as the next Pidadipati of the Jyotirmatam. And immediately agreed, obviously, because his guru said so. And at this time, the guru left his mortal coil. Shivaratnagiri Swami left his mortal coil. And now our Jnanananda Swami was the Pidadipati. Jnanananda Swami, so when you take sannyasa, we see this even in Narayana Tirtha's story. When you take sannyasa, you are given a punarjanma. And in that story, what happens is, he was about to die. He falls in a river. He's about to die. And at that point, he chants the sannyasa mantras. Because if you become a sannyasi and you leave your mortal coil, you will attain the highest. You will attain moksha. No, that's a guaranteed thing. So he wanted to attain sannyasa at the very last moment. So he started chanting these sannyasa mantras. But the mantras are so powerful that that he survived, because the death is just shedding, as I said, it is leaving your identity as this body, right? So when you get initiated in the sacred thread ceremony, or when you are taking sannyasa, they call it a punarmarjanam, which is you're taking another birth. So like that, in that story, Narayana Tirtha Swami attains another life. So he does not actually die from drowning, and he becomes a sannyasi. So like that, Jnanananda Swami became an ascetic, and he was, as I said, it's a punarmarjanam. So if it's a new birth, you give the guru himself, whoever's anointing them, whoever's giving them sannyasa, will also do namakarana. It is just like when a child is born, we do all of the samskaras, right? We do jatakarma, we do namakarana, we do all of that, right? Like that, since this is now a new birth, our Shivaratnagiri Swami gives him a name, and that name is what we know him by today, Jnanananda Swami, Jnanananda. So the significance of the name is, where did our Shivaratnagiri Swami first meet him? Pandaripuram. And in Pandari, the Vimana in the Gopuram, or the how do I say it? In the top of the structure, the temple structure, the Gopuram, the name of that Vimana is Jnanananda Vimana in Pandaripuram. The name of that is Jnanananda. That is why he gets this name, Jnanananda. So Swami is now the Pidadipati of the Jyotirmatam. He does it for some time, but Swami later himself says, running a matam is just having a bigger family. It is no different than a householder life, because it is just a bigger family. You're running with more people. You have more things to do. You have to do when you do account balances and stuff, or if you're running something like that, it is not easy, and you have to manage all of the ascetics and their comfort, everything. So it is not easy. So Swami did not like that. He wanted ekanta. So he found an apt shishya called Anandagiri. So that is the anointed name. He gives another shishya sannyasa and makes him take this Jyotirmata. He becomes the head of this Jyotir Peetham. And Swami leaves and goes to the Himalayas. Jyotir Peetham, as I said, is in Srinagar, in Kashmir. And Swami does tapas in Himalayas for nobody knows how long. The timeline of Jnanananda Swami, as I said, is we cannot say what time all of this happened, because at the time of Bharadiyar, Swami existed. At the time, very recently, Swami existed in physical form. I'm saying Swami existed. So we cannot actually pinpoint the timeline, but we know that for a lot of years, Swami was doing tapas in the caves of Himalayas, and after all of this, Swami comes back, and as we know him today as the Stapaka of Tapovanam. I think all of us know Tapovanam, right? So the Jnanananda Samajam we know, or the Jnanananda Sampradaya, was all formed after Swami came back from the Himalayas. And going a bit forward because we're running short on time. Swami, as I said, there is Swami's Katha, which is a collection of the devotees' Anubhava, is endless. It is endless because if we ask any of the devotees, they'll have endless experiences. And Swamiji, as I said, he has lived across many ages. So different people from different timelines have different experiences with Swami. So it is not humanly possible to cover all of the experiences. Even if we discuss Jnanananda Swami for our whole lifetime, it is not possible because he has lived for several lifetimes and is still there. So just to conclude, in his mortal form, Swami decided to leave his mortal form just on the same day of his guru, as I said, on Chitra Purnami. And when the Bhaktas asked Swami, what do you mean? Because they did not expect Swami to say out of the blue that he is going to now leave his mortal coil. They asked him, Swami, what do you mean? Swami says, Swami irkum. In the vadivata irkadu, which means I will still exist. It is just that I will not be in this form. And he says, what is that song? Chutti pirati urutti kurikulle katti potruppen Gurunathan arulale. So he's saying the way my samadhi will be is just like my Gurunathan, just like how we know our Raghavendra Swami. He's in a jiva samadhi, like he's in a cave or in an enclosed structure and is still living. And the reason Mahatmas they take this form of this samadhi is because not all of us may see the Mahatma when they are in their mortal coil. We have to be very fortunate to see a Mahatma when they are living, interacting with us. We have to be very, very fortunate, which we are, without a doubt. But as I said, the inherent characteristic of all of these Mahatmas is to shower grace. Like I said, like Varuna, as our Totakacharya Swami says, their purpose to come to this earth is just to shower grace. How can they do it after they left their mortal coil? They came up with a solution. We will take Jiva Samadhi so that whoever comes and worships us, even in this Jiva Samadhi state, will get whatever they want. And there is no need for anyone to lament that the Guru is not in the mortal coil, because one of the greatest Pandari Bhaktas, Niloba Maharaj, he is also a great Guru Bhakta. I'm sure we all know his Katha. His Katha always comes after Tukaram Maharaj. He's such a great Guru Bhakta that so we know that Tukaram Maharaj went to Vaikuntha with his body. He went with his body. We know the Kirtan, Baila Ale Hari. Sang that and he went to Vaikuntham. But there was this Bhakta who wanted to see Tukaram Maharaj and just missed him by 2 or 3 days. He comes there and they tell him, Tukaram Maharaj went to Vaikuntham with his body. He was very upset, and to attain his Guru, he did tapas. And his Guru came from Vaikuntha. His Guru came from Vaikuntha just to give him a form. And before the Guru came, Pandurangan himself came actually. Pandurangan came and said, I am very pleased with your tapas. What do you want? And Niloba Maharaj answers, who asked you to come here? I did not ask you to come here. I asked my Guru to come here. Why are you here? So he says, your Guru is in Vaikuntha. Why would he come down? He said, I didn't call you. My Guru will come down. Because I have faith that my Guru will come down. You don't need to play middleman. You can go. He sends Panduranga away. And then Tukaram Maharaj himself comes from Vaikuntha to give Nilava Maharaj darshan. And he also attains the same state. He also goes to Vaikuntha like his Guru. So the purpose they have is, not all of us can become Nilava Maharaj, but the purpose they have, the Samadhi, is so that when we do the Smarana of the Guru, and when we want to go and see the Guru, when we want to feel the presence of the Guru, we can go somewhere and we can actually feel it. When we go to Govindapuram, when we go to our Bodhendra Swami's Adhishtanam, we can still feel the presence. They still say that you can hear the Ramanama. Even if nobody is chanting, you can still hear Ramanama because Bodhendra Swami's Samadhi is there. So in this Samadhi Rupa, Swami tells his bhaktas that I will always be with you. You don't need to worry. And as I said in the first day, Swami neither ascended nor descended. Swami has been existing forever. So learning about a great Mahatma like Jnanananda Swami, it not only gives us appreciation for him as a Mahatma, it also tells us how we should treat our Guru. And in our story itself, we see, and the Guru generally, they cannot tell us that you do this, you do that, right? Not that they can't, they don't tell us. Our Guru Maharaj never tells us that, for you do this, you do that. He never tells us. He only tells us to chant Nama, but other than that, he doesn't, hyper regulate our life, right? But how do we know how to treat the Guru? Because at least myself, I am not literate in the Shastras. I don't know how to, there is no Shastra which tells you how to treat the Guru. So how do you treat the Guru? You listen to the Katha of these Mahatmas, and from this we know that, if he did such service to his Guru, we should also do service to our Guru. So that is the purpose. When we learn about the Charitra of these Mahatmas, it is to understand and appreciate our Guru. That is what it means. When we appreciate the Mahatmas, we accept, as our Guru Maharaj's philosophy, which is accept all. We accept all Mahatmas. We need to learn about all of the Mahatmas, but adapt one. We take all of their teachings and apply it to our life, and our life is nothing but serving our Guru. So, as we conclude with the Jnanananda Swami Charitram, it is a bit rushed, as I agree, due to time constraints. So, with this, I hope we get a chance to more elaborately look at the Charitram. And the Charitram, as I said, is a collection of Bhaktas' experiences, which we will all relate to. So, by our Guru Maharaj's grace, may we keep listening to such great Mahatmas, the Kathas of such great Mahatmas, so that we can serve our Guru better. We ask our Guru, it is a circular reference, we ask our Guru to give us more Katha about Mahatmas, so that we can learn how to serve our Guru better. So, with that Prarthana, we will conclude the Katha for today, and Akshay will begin Katha next week. Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai.